Black parenting is hard, which is why I don't do it. I mean, it looks difficult. It not only do you have to try to raise like a mentally healthy and strong, and loving human being, you also have to be constantly cautioning them against the things that the world is going to throw at them as a Black person.
What's good? I'm Nikisha Elise Williams, and this is Black and Published, bringing you the journeys of writers, poets, playwrights, and storytellers of all kinds. Today's guest is Brian Broome, author of the award-winning memoir, Punch Me Up to the Gods, a book that would not exist had it not been for Brian's years of drug and alcohol abuse and his quest to get clean.
When I was in rehab, I had a counselor who would be like, you lie a lot. And she was like, you're never going to get sober if you keep lying. So when I would go back to my room and write, I would be like, okay, what is the truth?
The truth, Brian writes, is equally painful as it is affirming of what it takes to grow from a Black boy to a Black man in the United States. During the discussion, he shares the shame he still feels around sharing some of his story. Why he and his family don't talk about that time he burned down the house. And the fallback jobs he still got on standby. Just in case this writing thing doesn't work out. That and more is ahead when Black and Published continues. When did you know that you were a writer?
I still don't know that. I have no idea. I just go with it. Like, really, I enjoy writing. And as long as people want to read what I write, then I'll keep writing. But, I'm still, I know a lot of writers who are very confident and say that, I'm a writer. And it still feels a little weird to me because I never said I wanted to be a writer. Like, this is something that I don't want to say I fell into it, but, I just started writing for like my own mental health. And then people wanted to read it. And then I just kept writing. And so, I don't know. I think maybe one day it'll hit me and then I'll say I'm a writer, but that day is not here yet.
Okay. So then if you feel like you fell into it and people wanted to read what you were writing, when did you, I guess, decide that the things that you were writing for your own personal healing, you wanted to give to the world in a more public way?
This is a terrible answer. Like, I didn't decide that either. Like,
I love it.
I went to rehab for drug and alcohol abuse, and I was in rehab, and that's where I started writing. And I was writing just kind of for, there's not a whole lot to do in rehab, and I started writing in there. And, when I came out, I started performing, like doing these sort of open mic things. And one night when I was performing, I met a woman who said she wanted to be my agent. And, she was like, what are you writing? And I told her about, the stories, and she read them and she said, okay, I'm going to take you on as my client. And I was like, okay. And she said, we're going to write a book, basically. And I was like, okay. And I just kept, I guess the point is I just kept saying yes to things, and that's still my go-to. Like, I just say yes to things. And they some work out and some don't, but now that the book is out there, I do feel more confident, in this thing, in the things that I write. But there's never been on my part like a decision, like I'm a writer and this is what I'm going to do. I still got all kinds of like fallbacks, I might go back to waiting tables. It could happen any minute, but for now, I am happy, just writing.
Mr. Winner of the Kirkus Prize and Washington Post columnist, I don't think you're gonna go back to waiting tables no time soon. That's just my opinion, but whatever. So, what has it felt like to say yes to things that were not in your life plan as you were planning it and for it to work out?
It feels great because I wasn't planning my life. Well, I did have a plan. I had a job that I hated. But my plan literally was just to like stay at that job because it paid all right. And, I just was prepared to be miserable every day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. That was like my plan because I'm from one of those families. And I think a lot of Black Americans are from those families. Get a job, get a job that pays well and live a life, not really, my family wasn't really concerned about like your happiness, like you get a job, and so that was my plan. So it feels great to actually be doing something that I enjoy, and then have it like work out. That's amazing to me. And I think that in part leads to, why I still have all these like fallback jobs. Because there are times when I can't believe it. There are times when I'm just like, wow, I meet with certain people and I'm like, wow, like I can't believe that happened. I really need to make sure that that table waiting job is still waiting for me, Uh, so it feels amazing, and I'm very, very, very blessed.
When you say that, I am, I guess, unfortunately reminded of that scene from The Cosby Show with Theo and, the whole regular people bit. And, you got to get a job and you have money. And now you, I guess, stumbled, for lack of a better word, into something that you enjoy and can love and can also, provide you the kind of life that you want to live. What has your journey been like to get to this place of peace?
Oh, there ain't no peace. I
Mm.
mean,
Well, okay then.
it's more, I am a drug addict, and the thing that I'm most grateful for is that I'm clean. You know, um, this place that I'm in right now, I wouldn't trade it for anything right now. What I've been through. I regret that I didn't get clean sooner. But what can you do about that? I got clean when I got clean. But if I actually sit down and take the time to think about where I was, 10 years ago, it never would have dawned on me like that I'd be sitting here today talking to you about a book and about a Kirkus Prize and about the Washington Post and about these other opportunities that have been presented to me. It just, if you knew where I was, like you wouldn't believe it.
You are so candid about your addiction and what was going on in your life when you were in the throes of that addiction in your memoir, as well as, the life that you lived as a Black gay man who was trying to reconcile that within himself and within his family structure. It was striking to read. And I guess my question is, was it difficult to write, even though it comes across with such beauty and ease?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, um, I put my business in the street,
Yes, you did.
um, but as I said, it was very important to me to get sober because after you've been, abusing drugs and alcohol for a long time, like you get tired, and you realize that this isn't working. Like this booze and drugs, it's not working. And I was desperate to try something else. And when I was in rehab, I had a counselor who was great. Like, I would go to her, because rehab is basically you go to therapy all day and, do therapeutic things. And when I would go and see her, she would be like, you lie a lot. And she was like, you're never going to get sober if you keep lying. So, I when I would go back to my room and write, I would be like, okay, what is the truth? Like,
Mm.
I also have to talk about how awful I was to people. I have to talk about how selfish I was, and so I have to kind of be honest about all this stuff if I'm going to get sober. And that, I think, was the driving force, but it was difficult. you know there are some things I put in the book that I was later I was just like, oh my god, I shouldn't have put that in there. um and but now it's out there. There are some things that I put in that I did take out because they were too much.
There aren't many books like this that I've read on the market. So then, what was the conversation between you, agents, editors, publishers about, once it was ready, about what the plan was?
The plan was kind of that, like, aren't a whole lot of books out there, on this topic. I think that we're talking about it more. I think in the Black community, the conversation is just barely beginning about our boys and homophobia and misogyny and what it means to be a man. Lil Nas X is out there doing his like thing, and I just watched Rothaniel. Um, and we're starting to talk about it more. And it's just we're still at the beginning of this conversation. I'm very grateful that if in any small way my book can be part of the conversation that we're having about these different sort of like gender roles. It's they're constructed and they are sometimes harmful. um, and I think that's a conversation that we should be having.
So then let's get to the book so that we can further have this conversation. If you want to do your reading, and then we will go from there.
Sure.
All right, Black and Published family, it's time for the reading. Brian's memoir, Punch Me Up to the Gods, details his life from his upbringing in Ohio to his move to Pittsburgh as he navigated the various intersections of his identity, Black, gay, and male, while also experiencing extreme poverty and suffering from severe addiction. Through this exploration, Brian also deconstructs the concept of manhood in interludes woven throughout the narrative about a little boy he saw on a city bus named Twan. Here's Brian.
This is at the very beginning of the book where I see Twan. And this little story is called The Initiation of Twan. I'm standing at the bus stop in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, on the Black end of town. It's a hot but overcast summer day. To my left is a young man mesmerized by his cell phone. He laughs out loud periodically while staring into its depths. Then his thumbs fly like hummingbird wings over the keyboard. He is dressed like all the other young men around here in the newest iteration of distressed jeans with stark white tennis shoes and a shirt with a sports logo emblazoned across the front. I notice him only because a little boy wearing an almost identical outfit in miniature is circling around and around his feet like a toy train. The toddler, who is doing all the things toddlers do with their newly found feet, pitches forward with full force onto the sidewalk, enormous toddler head first. The women around me gasp, and so do I. Some of them take halting steps toward the boy. Pearls are clutched while we wait for the young man, who I assume is the boy's father, to pick the boy up and tend to him. The boy's wails are high-pitched and ear-splitting. The child's name is Twan. Shake it off, Twan, the young father says, glancing briefly down at the boy and then turning back to his phone. Twan sits down on the sidewalk only to howl more loudly. The women around me shift their eyes from the child to the father and back again. Their worried looks are digging deep creases between their brows. They exchange disapproving glances at one another. The boy's screams are now rattling his voice box, and his mouth is open so wide that his little face appears to be tearing itself apart. As I watch the boy sitting on the sidewalk, I try to remember what real crying feels like. I can't. I can only remember the tactics I employed to try to suppress it. Twan's father picks the boy up off the ground and places him on the bus stop bench before turning back to the flickering lights inside his phone. Tuan has no interest in shaking it off. Be a man, Tuan, the boy's father says out of the corner of his mouth, eyes steady on the phone. Tuan has no interest in being a man, and his streaming continues. Tuan's father kneels down, grips the boy by the shoulders, and looks him straight in the eyes. Stop crying, Tuan. Be a man, Tuan. When I was a boy, I used to sit on the back steps of our house after an ass whooping because afterward I was always commanded not to leave our yard. My father would wander out after a long while with his head down and the same hands he'd used to just whoop my ass shoved deeply into his pockets. Instead of letting the screen door slam as he usually did, he would close it carefully. He knew he had let his temper get the best of him, and so he would come out weighed down by a remorse he was unable to express with words. He'd just sit down next to me and quietly look off into the distance. He'd fish out his packet of Winstons, place one between his lips, use both hands on his lighter to light it and exhale a thick cloud of ivory smoke. For a little while, he and I would sit there and share a silence that was occasionally broken up by my hiccuping sobs and sharp intakes of air. Sometimes he would come out bearing gifts, a popsicle or a candy bar that he'd hand to me wordlessly while still looking out on the backyard. And we'd sit there until he couldn't take listening to my sopping, wet whimpering any longer. And he'd command me suddenly, as if he'd just woken out of a dream, stop crying. You done cried enough. Stop crying right now. I would stop immediately. As Tuan's father's voice becomes louder, demanding that the boy stop crying, all I want to do is pick the boy up to make sure he's all right. I can't explain it. Something to do with his tiny shoulders being held in a vice-like grip by the very person he needs tenderness from in this moment. Something about his unaddressed ache. And I realize that this, what I am witnessing, is the playing out of one of the very conditions that has dogged my entire existence, this being a man to the exclusion of all other things. As Tuan's father publicly chastises him for his tears, I remember how my own tears were seen as an affront. I remember how my own father looked at me as if I was leaking gasoline and about to set the whole concept of Black manhood on fire. Stop crying. Be a man.
How did you get to weaving your story with the introduction and the indoctrination of Tuan?
So Tuan, that didn't happen until I was actually kind of like in the middle of the book, like writing the middle of the book. And then one day I literally, like, that story happened just the way that I wrote it. Like, I was standing at the bus stop. I see a little boy fall and I see him crying and I see his father just say, stop crying, and doesn't like tend to him at all. And some people were like, well, that's just negligent fathering. And I was like, no, that's the way like boys are raised. You know, that's the way we particularly I think in the Black community, we start training our boys to be, quote, tough, end quote, all the time. And so I got on the bus and I sat near them and I took out my pen and pad, and I just started jotting down their interactions. And I felt like the things that I saw when I got them home, when I looked at my scribblings of their interactions, I saw a direct correlation between, the way Tuan was being treated as a young Black boy and the way that I was treated, as a young Black boy into manhood, So I was like, well, this has to go in the book. So that's how I got there.
I remember reading one of the sections. I just turned to it on page 117, and you're talking about Tuan was playing with his iPad and the game wasn't really working. And you have the line, all he wanted was the pretty lights. He didn't know that he had to prove himself for them to appear. And I think I messaged you. I was like, that took me out. I had to sit with those words. I'm still sitting with those words. I was like, whoa, I didn't ask you for all of this. for all this dragging right here. And incorporating the story of Tuan and breaking it up as you did to show the parallels of how Black boys are still being raised in comparison to how you were raised and everything that you went through. When you were crafting the book and getting it ready for publication, why was it important for you to explain what was happening but then also show the grace of why there could be a better way in raising young Black boys?
Because I see it, I see parents, Black parents now raising their boys differently. I don't see it a whole lot. But I do see it. I do see, Black fathers who have recognized maybe the way that they were brought up was not the best way for their son's mental health and for their son to become like a whole person. But mostly I do still see that same old like be a man to be tough, kind of raising of boys. But I there, but I, Black parenting is hard. It looks hard to me, which is why which is why I don't do it. I mean, it looks difficult. It not only do you have to try to raise like a mentally healthy and strong, and loving human being, and a smart human being, and a funny, all those good things, right? You also have to be constantly cautioning them against the things that the world is going to throw at them as a Black person. This is something that white parents don't have to contend with, right? Um, any parenting looks hard, but it's important to extend grace, because raising Black children, I would be terrified, all the time. Not only because of what the parenting comes with in general, like their health, their well-being, but also just because you're sending them into this world, into this society that will eventually, it's guaranteed, somehow abuse them for being Black. And that's why I think, for the most part, we do still have this thing, particularly with Black boys, about being tough, 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 and rough and tough all the time. Unfortunately, that toughness extends to the way that Black women are treated. It's not this sort of patriarchal thing that gets handed down. It's like, you have to be more powerful than somebody. And oftentimes that powerfulness, is aimed at Black women. And that's, I think, what needs to change. You can raise a strong boy without raising a misogynist and a homophobe.
Hmm.
And you can, and the same thing with girls. Like, being tough doesn't mean that you have power over somebody. Those are two different things. Being strong doesn't mean that you have power over somebody. Those are two different things.
What do you think Black masculinity is, and what do you think it should be?
What I think it is right now, unfortunately, I read, Bell Hooks, God rest her, wrote a book called "We Real Cool: Black Men and Masculinity," and in her book, one of the theories that she puts out there is that Black manhood in America has taken on, this patriarchal tone that comes from, white supremacy, right? It comes from this white idea of what a man is. Um, and, strength and patriarchy are not the same thing. They don't have to be the same thing. I think people have come to think of them as one and the same. I think what Black manhood looks like, I grew up in the 90s, when, rap had become incredibly misogynistic, and Black women were always, bitches and hoes, and how you don't love them, and how they nasty, and how blah, blah, blah. Um, it unfortunately, that comes from somewhere, that comes from a culture where patriarchy and misogyny are conflated with strength, if that makes any sense. In order to be a strong man, you have to be over a woman. You have to be, ruling a woman. That's not the case. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of Black manhood is looking like right now. And misogyny and homophobia are, they're fraternal twins. They're cut from the same cloth, right? So that's what I think far too many people think Black manhood is. The second part of your question, I think that you don't have to sacrifice, um, being strong for not being a misogynist or a homophobe. you know. I hear like so many things like men are getting soft or whatever. I hear that a lot, but I don't think that that's the case. I think that men who are truly strong look at all that bullshit. They look at all that like, misogyny, and they look at all that homophobia, and they're like, well, I'm not doing that. That's what strength looks like, to go against like what you're being told you're supposed to be. And that's what I think masculinity could look like. The real strong people, mentally strong, are out here, saying like, I don't hate women, I respect women, I'm not a homophobe. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. A lot of times I think masculinity is about proving things to other men. Performative masculinity in this weird way is oddly homoerotic because men do it for other men, it seems like. And I think true strength comes from, a man looking at all that, and not caring if his friends call him a fag or whatever, and doing whatever the hell he wants to do, and being friends with whomever the hell he wants, or being gay or being straight or whatever. It just comes from rejecting all that shit that people keep telling you that you should be. That is informed, in my opinion, by capitalism, patriarchy, and all the other things that I think do men harm and women harm.
You tell this story in the book about the time you burned down the house.
Why you gotta tell everybody?
It's in the book.
Fine. All right, fine.
Do you go back to that moment with your family and ever talk about that? Because I was like, you just telling me how you just burned the whole house down.
Yeah. I have actually gone back to the spot where the house was. And it's so strange to me. I mean, I am so old, and like that I burned that house down. I forget how old I was. It was maybe 11 or 12. Nobody has built anything on that spot since. Still, it's still empty. It is still empty. I went back to look at it. I mean, this was just like maybe 2 summers ago. And the neighborhood has been built around it. Nobody has built on that spot ever again. I think for some reason, I just think that's so interesting. And it's a beautiful little plot of land. I don't know, but I think that I hated it so much. I hated that poverty so much that I think I think I put a curse on the land or something. I don't know.
But like the whole neighborhood is immemorial to what used to be there.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It's so strange. We have not still talked about it. We haven't. They read it, but it was very strange. Like when it happened, we never talked about it. And my mother, she had to have known that I did it, but she never scolded me. She never asked me any questions. My sister, who was there, we've never talked about it. And I think that is so weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I read that section, that chapter, and then I immediately thought of Deisha Philya's story, Jael, and how that story ends.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever I read that story, I always think of Left Eye burning the house down. And just that clip from like when they were on Behind the Music where Chili's like, turn on Channel 5, she burned the house down.
She took care of that house. Like, yes, she did. It's just, I mean, I was crazy. I hated how poor we were, because that's, another conversation. Like when you're poor in this culture, like the culture treats you like you did something wrong, like you're worthless, like you're lazy, like all these things. And I hated it, because I was going to school every day with these, white kids who seemed to have it all. And that added to my like feelings of, shame.
Why?
Because they're shameful, like there's a point in the book where I talk about I don't even know if I don't even want to say it now, like where I talk about me in high school and how, I was basically cooning, that was so hard for me to write. That was so hard for me to write. And I wanted to take it out, but there was just no other word, there was no other way to say it. Um, and, there are days where I'm like, oh God, I wish I didn't put that in there. But it's the truth. And I think it's the truth that, Black Americans face. We grow up in this culture that tells us that there's something second or third or fourth class about us, you know, and that's what I wanted to communicate, that that's what was happening to me. And there was no other way to say it. So, yeah, but it's very shameful. It's a shameful thing.
I know what part you're talking about. And reading that part, I think what sticks out to me the most is when your mother came to get you.
Mm.
And as a mother, your kids can piss you off and do some of the dumbest shit ever, but you're
Mm-hmm.
going to get that baby.
Yeah.
You're going to get that baby.
Oh, yeah.
Ain't nobody tell you to bring your ass all the way out here, but
Yeah.
come on, let's go home. And so that's what stuck out to me the most.
Yeah.
And then the chapter that you gave her where she tells her own story and in her own voice. How did you come to that decision? Because I think that was one of my favorites.
I came to the decision because I really wanted to give some perspective, about who I was and where I came from. And nobody knows you better than your own mother. And I was kind of tired of the sound of my own voice, in the book. And so I decided to go to my mom and interview her for that chapter. And I was very surprised because my mother she was very much more open than I thought she would be. She was like, go ahead, tell it. I don't care, and I learned a lot about her in the interview process. Like the stuff in that chapter, like a lot of it I did not know, and all of a sudden, like a light bulb went off over my head. Like, oh my gosh, my mother was a person. She hasn't always been my mother, and that seems really like stupid, right? Of course she was. But like, I think a lot of times when we look at our parents, like we don't recognize the fact that, they were whole ass people. Like before you came along, my mother had dreams and ambitions and she wanted to be a nurse. And then just because of the time, all of that got derailed. She had to now become what society told her that she needed to be because she was pregnant. And, I wanted that chapter because I wanted people to know, that my parents weren't villains.
I didn't feel like you vilified your parents. I think one of the most endearing moments is the story that you tell and your mother ends up buying you the shirt at the department store. I really love that story. And I think as a whole, there was resolution to me. Like, even though you're still on your journey, you're still living, there was resolution to that portion of your story that you're sharing in the book. And coming from such a background where you are able to acknowledge your poverty and acknowledge the racism you face and the homophobia that you face as a young child, and then all that you've gone through as an adult to where you are now, what would you say to the boy of your youth?
If he would listen, which he probably wouldn't, I would say, please don't put too much stock in what people are saying to you. What people are saying to you is designed for you to make them more comfortable around you. When people are telling you that you need to be a football, baseball, basketball player, that is for them, not for you. When people are telling you that it's wrong to be gay, that is for them, not for you. When people are telling you that it's shameful to be poor, that is all about them, So I would tell that young boy that a lot of what people tell you is bullshit, and don't let it affect you. But, that's great advice, but it doesn't really work in the real world, You can tell a kid that and they won't listen to you. You can tell an adult that. We still are sort of enslaved by the things other people think about us or say about us, you know. And I would also try to tell him to, you know, also be kind to other people because I wasn't always kind. You know, because of the things that were put on me, I would search out somebody who was like weaker than me, and do the same thing to them. So it's just this thing that keeps going and going and going. And I wish it would stop. I wish people would stop.
And so then along those same lines, what do you want your readers to get from your story and all that you've put into it?
Exactly that. You know, leave people the hell alone. You know, leave people's bodies alone. Leave people's, you know, other people's lives alone as long as they're not harming anybody else. Stop imposing your expectations on people. Let people live their lives. You know, that's what I would like people to do. I would like for people to just be more empathetic, I guess. I try to be. I don't always succeed, but I do try to think about other people's feelings when I'm engaging out in the world. And I do try to let other people be free, um, and do their thing.
I want to transition to a speed round and a quick game before I let you go for the afternoon. What is your favorite book?
Oh God. Oh, I'm going to just give a shout out to my friend Disha Field, The Secret Lives of Church Ladies. I'm going to say that today because I love her and I love her writing.
Who is your favorite author?
Oh, I don't have one. Like, I mean, it feels like I'm copping out, but like, I, I don't have one. I don't have one.
All right, so we talked about rap music. You have a chapter in your book with the title of a famous Luther Vandross song. So who is your favorite artist?
Singer?
Mm-hmm.
You know, right now I'm in a real big Anita Baker phase.
Yes.
And also Millie Jackson. Millie Jackson from the 1970s is another favorite, you know. Yeah, so right now it's Anita Baker and Millie Jackson.
Okay. So you talked about all these fallback jobs when you go back to being a waiter. What are the fallback jobs that you have lined up in your head just in case?
Okay, so just in case, I can always go back to waiting tables. I do have a friend who still works for AAA who says that she can get me back at AAA if I want to go back to AAA, but I got fired from there, but I don't know if they'll rehire me. I just have friends that work in these different, like, it's customer service usually, or, you know, like waiting tables. These are all the fallback jobs that I have lined up in case, you know, this writing shit don't work out. So I'm not gonna miss a payment. I'm not going hungry. Like, I'm going right back to work if this doesn't work out.
Okay, and so on the opposite end of that spectrum, if money were no option, where would you go? What would you do? And where would you live?
Oh man, you know, I loved Paris so much. I would probably live in Paris, but it's, you know, if money were no object, you said, okay, so Paris, or I would buy a house here, like in the Bay Area, like, because since I've been here, like, I've really, really come to enjoy it. Like Oakland, you know, my dreams are all pretty manageable. I don't need to be like rich. I'm not, that's not a goal of mine. I do, you know, and this sounds cliche, I do want to be like comfortable. I don't want to have to worry about financial things, but like, I just picture myself, you know, in a quiet place that's near a big city.
What's the best thing so far about your new sober West Coast writing life?
Um, I love Pittsburgh, of course, but like, now that I'm not around like my life, you know, I feel freer to write other kinds of things, you know. And I also, you know, I'm out here teaching. And yesterday it was beautiful. I'm teaching grad students and we played Duck Duck Goose outside. And that was fun. I just feel a little bit freer out here because it's just the vibe is different. The culture's different. The people are different, and I'm really enjoying it, and it makes me feel like writing different kinds of things.
Okay. And so, what brings you peace?
Being left the fuck alone. I'm really not. I'm really not like a huge people person. I have my 4 or 5 people. Um, and it's not that I don't enjoy people sometimes, but I guess I'm what they call an introvert. Not that I'm shy, I'm not shy, but if I'm around a lot of people, like it does take a lot of energy out of me and I have to like, be alone for a few days. But I just, my favorite I'm gonna tell you what my favorite thing in the whole world is when I am by myself and I have nothing to do. And I can just kind of do whatever I feel like doing, whether that's absolutely nothing or reading or I don't when I don't have anything on my mind that needs to be done. Like when the slate is clean, I've done all my things, and I can just feel free to just like not do anything. My dream is to do nothing.
See, those moments give me severe anxiety. Like I feel like
Really?
I'm supposed to be doing something. Like, did
Right.
I miss something? Did I forget something?
Right.
Like I don't have nothing.
Right.
I'm not okay. In those moments. All right. So my game is called Rewriting the Classics. We'll see how far we get.
Okay.
What's the one book you wish you would have written?
The Prophets, Robert Jones Jr.
What's one book where you want to change the ending and how would you do it?
Probably Brokeback Mountain. It's so sad. Uh, I would make it. I would make it happier. I would make the two gay cowboys go off into the distance and be in love forever and ever. But that would completely change what the story is, and that's not fair. But it's so sad, the way it is. But it's a good sad story.
All right. And so my messy question.
Messy question.
Yes. Name a book that you think is overrated or overtaught for the professor in you.
Probably Infinite Jest. It's a mess. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Like, people keep talking about it like it's like a classic or whatever, and it's like so genius. It's just a mess to me. I didn't, and maybe I'm being unfair because I didn't even like get through it, but like it's a mess. It's not that great. Like, what else? What else? What else? What else? What else? Whenever I pick up a book, like because I'm supposed to have read it, as a professor, or it's supposed to be like canon or whatever, like it's not great. Like Walden like sucks. Like, you know what I mean? Like it can kiss all my entire ass. Like it's so boring. And like every time I try to read like something canon and the classic, this is usually white men, it leaves me cold and I'm like, I don't get it and I don't like it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my final 2 questions for you today. First, you said you've been working on some new things that are outside of your wheelhouse. So what's next for your literary career? Because it seems very charmed.
I am writing something now, and I have this idea. It's not nonfiction; it's a novel. I had this idea, and I sort of pitched it to my agent, and I pitched it to my editor, and they were like, "You should try it. You should try it." And so I started writing it. And I'm really excited about it. But I just don't know where it's going to go yet. It's different than nonfiction. The characters are telling me what's happening, right? Mm-hmm. Or what's going to happen now. And that's pretty fun. It's not an experience that I've had before. And I'm working on some like, TV and movie stuff, which is exciting. We'll see what happens with that, but that's what's next, and I'm going to continue to teach. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And my final question. So, when you are dead and gone and among the ancestors, what would you like someone to write about the legacy of words and work that you left behind?
I Really don't know. I have gotten so many really nice um, responses from people, from so many really nice things that have been said about the book, and that and now, and I've gotten them while I'm living, which is great. Like, I don't know if I care what anybody, if anybody says anything, after I'm gone. But I think what I would like to be known is that, he tried to be a better person. He looked at the world and saw that there were things that were wrong, and he occasionally spoke to it. I don't have any sort of like desires to have been considered great or like anything like that, but did you ever see Paris is Burning?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like Dorian Corey said, like, the thing about life is just to get through it, and if you shoot an arrow and it goes real high, hooray for you. That's kind of the way I think about life right now. I shot an arrow and it went kind of high, and like, that's hooray for me. But the goal of life is to get through it, and if you can get through it, you've done your job. If few people remember your name and you get through it, like, I think that's good enough for me for right now. Anyway, you talk to me next year, I'm gonna want to be Beyonce.
Thank you, Brian.
Things change.
Big thank you to Brian Broome for being here on Black and Published today. Make sure you check out Brian's memoir, Punch Me Up to the Gods, out now in paperback from Mariner Books. And if you're not following Brian, follow him on the socials. He's at BBRomB on Instagram, and that's the letter B, ROMB on Instagram. That's our show for the week. If you like this episode and want more Black and Published, head to our Instagram page. It's at Black and Published, and that's BLK and Published. There, I've posted a bonus clip from my interview with Brian about what he says he was trying to fix in himself during his years of addiction. Make sure you check it out and let me know what you think in the comments. I'll holler at y'all next week when our guest will be Asante Waboykin. Until next time, peace.